Hello, everyone, and welcome to the SAS Viya Release Highlight Show, our last show for 2024. Where did this year go? I'm Tiago de Souza, and today's show will focus on SAS Viya Workbench. Our Workbench expert, Joseph Henry, will show us how easy it is to bring in existing code from a familiar environment or start coding from scratch using your favorite coding language. Joseph also has some efficiency tips and tricks with SAS Notebook to share with us. But before we get into all that, David Vike is back to show us some of his favorite new features, including segmentation trees in SAS Intelligence Decisioning, annotations for columns in SAS Information Catalog, submissions in SAS Studio, and the new file trigger event in SAS Environment Manager, plus some new steps in SAS Studio. It's time to dive into the SAS Viyaverse.
Hello, and welcome back to this new update of SAS Viya. This time around, we are starting things off inside of SAS Intelligence Decisioning, where we have a new enhancement for segmentation trees. So let's go to the segmentation tree tab. And here I have created a baseline tree that we can take a look at. This baseline tree is just as you might have seen it in a previous release, where you can define complex rules, combine them with matrices, and really dig deep into how you split up customers, how you help with different segmentations. And this view of this splitting is very helpful, but it does lack some visual representation, especially if you have big or gigantic segmentation trees that you want to quickly navigate. So a new feature has been added. Next to the table view, which is what we are currently looking at, there is a new icon taking us into the graph view, visualizing the segmentation tree as a graph-based view, or a tree-based view in this case, where we can take a look at how things work. And one of my favorite features is that you also get a minimap, which is really helpful if you have a long or really big and deep tree to quickly navigate it. And you can also select the path highlighter, meaning that if you select a certain leaf, you can then see how that leaf traces back to the root. This is a very handy feature, especially if your tree is a lot bigger than what I'm showing here on screen, right? That really helps you to understand how things are moving, how you can understand them, and where you need to make your changes. So I hope this is as helpful to you as it was for me when building this step. And of course, from here, you can also do all the editing, you can work with them, you can keep extending the tree. So this doesn't take away anything from you. It adds new functionality and kind of enhances how you look at things. Now, for our next update, let's use this main menu to jump into SAS Information Catalog, where a cool new feature has been added. As you can see, I've pre-opened a table called HMEQ here, and what we can now do is notes to specific columns when we are in the column analysis tab, which we already are. Now, to do this, you click on the column that you want to add a note to, and then here on the right-hand side, switch from the Properties pane to the Annotations pane, where you can now add notes. Now, notes are in addition to terms that you can add via the glossary, where glossary notes are more general and apply probably to multiple columns across multiple tables. Notes are something that is very specific to this explicit column. This can be used, for example, to communicate specific information about this column. Let's say, well, up until 2020, this data was provided by an old system, and thus the data quality can never reach X. Or you could also use it to add additional context around specific values, meaning, for example, 0 means that the credit is good, 1 means that the credit is bad. Now, this is of course something you can also add in labels, but here you have a lot more room to expand on your forts, dive deeper, or give additional context around data quality measures or certain notes around thresholds that you never want to see hit, or how to handle outliers within that column. You can see that the note has been saved, and we can see who created it and who last modified it. We can copy it to our clipboard, to example, document it somewhere else. And of course, we can edit that note further. As you can also see, an additional icon has been added to that specific column. And if you hover over it, you can read that note. Now, these notes are consistent across all 3 tabs, so you can make sure that people have the full context around your different columns. This is a super helpful feature that can elevate the potential understanding in your organization and help to communicate knowledge that is usually just within the heads of a few data owners to be able to more broadly disseminate that information. With that, let me move over to SAS Studio, where we have a cool new feature for people that write a lot of SAS code or run a lot of flows, for example. So if you are running a lot of code in here, you might have already come across the Submissions tab. If not, let me introduce it to you. You find it in the bottom right corner where it says Submission. If you click on it, it opens up as an additional tab down below. And this tab is of course empty because this is a brand new session, so we have nothing in it. So let us start and see what happens as we submit SAS code here. So we'll just write a small data null step. We will set x be equal to hello world, and then just hit run or F3. Now, as the program finished to run, you can see that down below in the submission status tab, we also get a lot of information here. First up, we now get filters on the left-hand side saying successful. And then on the right-hand side, we can see a SAS program, its runtime, when it was submitted and when it was completed. And a very nifty feature, if we click on SAS program, we actually get into a read-only file which contains the code that was submitted. So maybe you accidentally deleted a whole bunch of stuff and Control-C isn't working for you right now for whatever reason. That's a handy way to recover some code. But let's see what happens as we keep building on top of our program. Let's introduce some issues to our code. So we'll just copy this code over, and instead of data, we will write date. Now, as a seasoned SAS programmer, you might immediately go towards, oh, this will produce a warning in the log, and indeed it does. And again, this is reflected in the Submissions tab. Now we have a warning in here. We can again see the runtime, the filtering, how long it ran for, all this awesome information. And finally, let's become a bit of rabble rousers and start by creating an issue. And we will actually generate a synthetic issue here by just introducing an abort statement and thus forcing an error inside of SAS. So we'll hit run with this. And now you can see we have an error, we have successful, we have warnings in here. We can scroll through time, and at each point we can open up the SAS programs and see what they did. Now, if you have proper names for your files and not just call them SAS program, you can also search through this submission tab. And if you kind of like figured out what you're doing and now you just want to do some test iterations, you can always hit clear all to reset the whole submission tab. So all of these are super neat features, and the UI has been greatly expanded to give you more flexibility in here. You can, of course, also customize what you see, in which order you see them, by just clicking the small icon in the top right to manage the columns and add and remove them as you see fit. So let's move on to an application I'm not sure we've ever touched on before, and that's SAS Environment Manager. So let's go to the main menu and click on Manage Environment. And here we will take a look at the new file trigger event that has been added. This can be found in the Jobs and Flows tab inside of SAS Environment Manager. And if we go into scheduling here, we can, of course, create jobs and job flows in here through the new icon. I have, of course, as a good baker does, prepared something for us to take a look at. Here I've created a flow. Let me just edit that or view the flow so you can see what it is. It's just a single job in there. Nothing too fancy, just to illustrate the example. Now, what has been added, if we go to Edit Schedule, previously you could only add time-based schedules to this. Now, with this new release, a new trigger type has been added, a file event. Here we can give this file event a new name. We select the file inside of SAS content, and then we can provide it a condition on which this should be triggered. This is an awesome capability, especially as you're thinking about things like triggering a job that should only run if a certain API, for example, created some data. And then you just put a trigger file in there that's checked on a timely schedule. And then if also that trigger file is present, then your flow can run. This is now a feature that's so easy to set up that you don't have to come up with your own tooling around it. You can just do it no code directly in the UI, which is very handy. Now, let's again use the main menu to switch over to SAS Studio, where we will take a look at the new steps that have been added in the last month. The first are two in the statistics category for hierarchical clustering and k-means clustering. We have a new aggregate loss models step in the econometrics category. And then a cool step that I want to talk about a bit more in detail in the transform data category is recode values. Now, this is a super awesome step that lets you quickly recode values of one column to a new column that can, for example, be used to turn character labels into numeric features that you can then use, for example, in machine learning, or the other way around, where you turn numeric values like 0 and 1 into yes and no to be used, for example, in your dashboards to make them more understandable and easier to use. What you can do is you select the recode, and here you can specify a numeric or character variable. Then you select the variable that you want to recode. Next, you go over to the Values tab where you can add records. On the left-hand side is the record you want to encode. And then the new value is what it should be replaced with in the new column. Here, I use the SAS Help Cars dataset and I recoded the origin from the actual continent/country to numeric values. And then I can also specify an output. Here you can specify the name of that recoded variable, and you can also specify if you want to put it into a new data set or you want to add it to your input data set, which both are great tools to optimize your workflow. And then if we run this step, here you can see I've done this. We see our origin Asia 1. If we scroll a bit down to Europe. So super easy to use, super straightforward, but I think something that is of great value to use in your data engineering and also for data scientists workflows. I hope you took something of value from this update. If you did, let me know down in the comments below and see you next time. Bye-bye.
That was our good friend David Vike with his Into the SAS Viyaverse segment. What do you think about the features he highlighted? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. So SAS Viya Workbench has been a hot topic around here at SAS. We're still riding high from the hype of its launch that happened earlier this year, as well as its exciting recent developments. What recent developments, you might ask? To answer that, let's toss it over to Cameron Massey interviewing Joseph Henry for this month's Release Talk.
Hey Joseph, welcome back.
Hey Cameron, really good to be here.
It's been a while since you've been on the show. Can you remind us of what SAS Viya Workbench is?
Yeah, I'd love to. So SAS Viya Workbench is a really easy to use, lightweight environment that's perfect for data scientists and modelers using SAS and Python. SAS developers will feel right at home with access to almost everything available in SAS 9, but also having access to all the advanced analytics in SAS Viya in a procedure format.
Wow. So you mentioned SAS 9 users. How easy is it for SAS 9 users to transition to SAS Viya Workbench?
Yeah, that's a really good question. We really wanted to make Workbench feel like SAS 9, but also being able to take advantage of the last decade in advancements that SAS Viya has made. Most all of your SAS 9 code will work just right out of the box with little to no change in code.
What does the future look like for SAS Viya Workbench?
So this month, we're actually launching our support in Workbench, with a lot of our customers are really excited about. We also recently launched the Workbench for Learners initiative, which puts Workbench in universities across America. Managed trials and demos are also available for Workbench right now. And so anybody listening right now can call us and request a trial or a demo. But stay tuned to this channel, because I'll definitely be back on when we start talking about new stuff, because it's coming soon.
So how easy is it to get started with SAS Viya Workbench?
It's really easy. Let me show you.
So I've logged into Workbench. To get started, just click New Workbench, give it a name, choose some compute, attach some storage, and press OK. Now you can open that Workbench in your editor of choice. I'm going to choose Visual Studio Code for this example. After you click the button, wait a few seconds, and you'll be dropped right into your development environment. New users will be presented with an empty workspace. But it doesn't have to stay empty for long. Simply open up a terminal and run the command you see in the README. You'll get a whole bunch of examples in SAS and Python along with data needed to run them.
How can a user take advantage of the Viya procedures?
Yeah, it's really simple. So just open up one of these examples that we've got. Just simply click Run. There's a Viya procedure in here. It'll just work. There's no configuration you do, no enablement, just all works. So we've got interwoven SAS data step, we've got Viya procedures, A store, all interwoven together, working with no additional setup.
What about SAS code that a user already has?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's really easy. So if I have some existing SAS code, I can simply drag it into my workspace. And this code right here is probably written about 25 years ago. It's taken off the internet, someone who likes to show off the output delivery system from SAS. Just click Run, and without changing a single line, this is going to run the same way it ran in the late 90s and early 2000s. One really great feature of SAS is that it's typically backwards compatible for most everything that you got.
Workbench isn't all about SAS code, though.
Oh, absolutely not. So we go back to the examples that were shown you earlier. There's a whole Python folder with a bunch of notebooks to get you started with Python modeling in SAS Workbench. So go ahead and run all these. I'm going to be talking through a few things. Mostly what you're going to see here is just pure open source, running in this full-featured Python development environment that Workbench provides you. Now, this is pretty much the same you're going to get on any other Python environment. But what you get with Workbench is access to the SAS Viya library for Python. Now, this looks and feels a lot like sklearn does right now, but it takes advantage of the advanced analytics Viya procedures that you can use. All you have to do is just import the package.
It looks like you were in a Jupyter notebook here. I'm a big fan of notebooks.
Yeah, notebooks are great. It's really an awesome way to mix and match code, markdown. You can fold things. You can move cells from forward and backward. SAS also provides a notebook format. Now, this is a notebook, but for SAS code. We've got data step, modeling, all your SAS code right here. One cool thing about this is I can change quickly from ODS to SAS log with a simple click. Another great feature of SAS notebooks is they are what we call polyglot, meaning that different types of code work inline. So we've got SAS code, We've also just got raw SQL here that executes directly inline in your SAS session. This also supports Python code inline as well.
And once you're done, the Workbench will automatically shut down to save on cloud resources.
Joseph, thanks so much for showing us the latest with SAS Viya Workbench. Tiago, back to you.
Thank you, Cameron and Joseph, for the scoop on SAS Viya Workbench. There are so many Workbench resources to check out. What's the best place to start? Well, as a moderator for the SAS communities myself, I would be remiss not to personally recommend the SAS Viya Workbench Communities Board. It's the best single place to watch demos, browse courses, connect with other users, and more. If you're looking for an in-person opportunity to connect with others, I've got just the thing for you. It's SAS Innovate 2025, our premier conference for business leaders, technical users, and SAS partners. We'll have inspiring keynote speakers, practical hands-on workshops, insightful breakout sessions, and much, much more. It's all happening from May 6th through May 9th in Orlando, Florida. Registration is now open, but the early 2024 rate expires soon. Visit sas.com/innovate to learn more and to register. Well, we've reached the end of our show, and today's show also marks the end of an era for someone on our team. This is our last show to have Cameron Massey as co-host as she moves on to the next chapter of her career at SAS. Cameron, as a token of our appreciation, I'd like to present to you this gift. Thank you so much for all the work you've put in over this last year. You will be sincerely missed.
Wow, thank you so much, Tiago. I'm really going to miss working with you and the team.
Same here. Why don't you close us out for this last show?
If you're watching this on YouTube, why not give us a like and subscribe to the SAS Users YouTube channel and click that bell so you'll get notified for new videos and when we go live for our next show in February. Until then, comment on what topics you'd like to see in future shows.
I've been your host, Tiago de Souza. From everyone here at SAS, we wish you all the happiest of holidays. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next year.